Hello and welcome back to Kingdom Creator Connective Collective. What is your sound that creates a movement? Do you know that there is something so unique about what you are going to create that is going to have a stamp attached to it because of you? This is why I'm about to get back on my soapbox. I always tell y'all, stay away from leaning so heavily on AI. Why? Because AI and you are two different people. But I can go into AI and create an avatar that looks just like me. I know. But does it have your voice? Does it have your inflection? Is it going to make your moves like you make your moves? Because 95% of them don't do that. They're usually a very automatic voice that doesn't really have inflection and activity of moving around unless it's an animation and you make it do that. And think about how much work it takes to do that. Because when I look at that, I'm like, that's more work than what I do to jump on here and give you all this content. Why am I saying that? Because you are the anomaly in what you create. And because you're the anomaly in what you create, there can be a catch 22 to this. And the catch 22 to this is if you create something that you develop, for instance, a product which doesn't put your face on it, meaning you're not standing next to the product and you aren't aligned like that. And a lot of brands that when you make it too much about you, people aren't going to be able to connect with it. Because, for instance, if you want to diversify your product, you're going to create something that has a diverse viewpoint or avatar where you will see a person that's Japanese, Chinese, African American, Latino, light African American, Caucasian, Indian, so forth. So if you want to create that level of diversity, having one silhouette isn't going to work for your company. Now, depending on what it is that you are trying to promote, are you trying to promote to diversify? Or are you trying to promote a service or a specific product? What it is that you are creating your movement around? What is that? Are you trying to diversify or are you not trying to diversify? Then understanding that whatever your statement is, I remember I was looking at a company one time and I just kept thinking in my head, we are moguls because of what it was. And I was like, man, that would be a great movement. Sometimes you can look at something and see that if it was properly aligned, what is it that is something that these people can come alongside of, because you understand and they understand, because you've all been standing and waiting for the same thing. You're all in alignment with the same thing. You all have the same issue, but the solution is within that. And what are the offshoots, subtopics, sub concerns that can be addressed in relation to that thing? Then when you add merchandise and journals and all of these are all things that create a movement. Okay. But it starts in its genesis with the idea, a quote, a statement. And with that quote, statement, understanding, you then can take that and create that's your business's philosophy or what have you. And it's the thing that is the core value of what it is that you're doing, that people can come up and get behind, that creates the presence, and then you can develop almost a campaign around it. I told you once before, remember in the other video, I was talking about creating a campaign. And I mentioned the musician Chance the Rapper created campaigns for his album sales. Whatever it is that you're desiring to do, think about the image that you're trying to create, you're trying to develop. What is that and what does it look like? How are you developing that thing? And how, in the midst of you developing that thing, is it coming together in a manner that is understandable for the people that are going to come alongside it, that are going to become attached to it? How does that look? Whether it's clothing, music, a collection, instrumental, whatever it is that you're trying to create. Nike has the check mark. What's the other brand? Starbucks has the cup. Which just happen to have, I happen to have one right here. Starbucks has the cup. But you recognize that cup when you see it, right? So what makes you recognizable? I talked about in another one that if you create a jingle on your YouTube page that specifically associated, it's the same tone, same tune every single time they hear your channel. Maybe it's 3 tunes that you use in a video content, but every time they hear that, what will happen is it will be, if they hear your videos or see your videos synonymously over and over and over and over again, they're going to associate you with that sound. Same thing with your brand colors. When I was telling you about the 3 or 4 colors that could be aligned up with what it is: tan, caramel, cream, green, and black or brown was the colors that I told you. When you create things that are in branding with all of that, and you remain consistent in everything you do, that these things are aligned colorway, then people are going to be like, oh, I can identify that's that person's brand. You see how that works? Now, I'll admit it, I have a problem with cutting my colors down because I have a tendency that I go a colorway of, I pick 8 colors and my brands might go 2 are in this field, then 2 match that field, and 2 match these 2, and then 2 match these 2. And then it's like, but what it is when you create a brand or something to that effect, the colors should move together. It's like when people create logos for a business, whenever they're changing the logo, they always tell them, don't drastically change the logo because it's going to shock your audience, because they say only change it ever so slightly every few years, and when people go back and they'll look at when you first started in comparison to where you are now, it may look like a drastic change of the emblem, but guess what? It's the exact same thing. It's just you saw it changing. It's like a child. If that child grows up in your house, you are used to seeing that child every single day. You don't notice the incremental small changes. It's not until that child is 10 years old. It's like, oh, I remember when they were a baby. And now they're 10 years old standing in front of you. But your family members or friends or people that are associated with you that didn't see that child between the time it was an infant to the time it was 10 years old are like, oh my God, look at how much you've grown. There will be growth, but you understand what it is that you're developing, the tone and the understanding that associates with you and the development of your brand over a period of time. Your most pivotal years, they always tell you this, are between year 1 and year 5, because that's when you solidify your brand. And if you can handle the weight, and most people buckle during a transitionary moment. Something has to transition, and it must transition quickly, or you're going to lose the momentum and the amount of people, the weight, the customer base, because you got a slew of orders and didn't weren't able to handle the weight. This just means you're in a transitionary period. And the catch-22 to that is, if your business does a good season where you had gotten 600 customer orders this season and you had to increase, but the catch-22 is, did you get 600 the next season? And can you handle the overhead, because you adjusted to the new overhead and that overhead didn't remain? So it's a balancing factor and understanding how to do that. But I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about some more in the next one.